So, again, I'm Ethan Su. For all the latecomers, I represent Dr. Jeff Sutherland, the creator of Scrum and the co-signer of Agile Manifesto. I hope to tell you some of the original story of how Scrum was created, so that if there's some of the points that you have not been paying attention to, you can take a look at that. Okay? All right. So the first thing that I want to share with you is how Scrum was created, the true story. A lot of people use Scrum just to try to install a work process in your organizations. And a lot of trainers will tell you, just do Scrum, and if you do Scrum, trust Scrum, and everything will work for you, and you can do anything you like, anything you want. There are even some people that only focus on the technical part of doing Agile, the pair programming, the technical things, and stuff like that. So, the first thing to use Scrum well is to understand why and how it was created from the perspective of the true creator. And I'm going to share with you Dr. Sutherland's video as he talked about it in one of the TED Talks. Right? And I cut short the video, so to scroll to the section where I find that you will be interested in. Alright, so let's go here. Okay, hopefully it plays. Keep my finger crossed.
That stop. How do we cure cancer? And while I was there, a big banking company running 150 banks all over North America came by, and they said, you know, at the university you have the best expertise in technologies we use at the bank. You have all the knowledge and none of the money, but at the bank, we've got all the money and we don't know what we're doing. You should come work for the bank and it would be a perfect marriage of knowledge and money. And they made me an offer that my wife couldn't refuse, a poor university professor. So I wind up at the bank, and what do I see? I see they're running all these huge projects, hundreds of developers, and they manage all these projects with a Gantt chart. And this is a technology that was introduced to the military of the United States in 1910. It didn't work very well in World War I, and it didn't work very well then, because every piece of the project is lined up with a date. And if anybody misses that timing, the whole project is delayed. And when it gets delayed, the customers get upset, the managers get angry. They would force these developers to work nights, weekends. They go on death marches. It reminded me of the Roman galleons, you know, the slaves rowing. The whip is cracking. But as a fighter pilot, I knew the essence of the problem. These guys could not land a project. You know, we learned as a fighter pilot that we had to very carefully bang that airplane right on the end of the runway. And if we did it, we might go halfway down the runway and slide off the runway into the trees. And that's what they were doing every project, sliding off the runway into the trees. So I went to the CEO and I said, this bank is totally screwed up. If you give me the worst business unit in the bank, I will fix it just like I fixed Company L2. And he said, Sutherland, if you want that headache, you've got it. So I said, okay, I will report to you once a month, to you and the senior management, and the rest of the time, you stay out of my unit. We're going to run this as a little company in a company, like a startup. And so we broke them down into small teams, sales, marketing, installs, engineering, everyone, all working together with team incentives in a collaborative space. And we ran weekly cycles. We began building a backlog of what we needed to do. And I began to show them how to land the airplane. How is it that a pilot can make a perfect touchdown? He has to look at altitude, airspeed, rate of descent, the heading of the airplane, understand the wind and the weather, and every few seconds being adjusting constantly. So every week they would try to land the airplane at the end of the runway. Bang. And week after week they did it. And surprise, surprise, in less than 6 months, that team was the best team in the bank. They had gone from the worst money-losing unit to the most profitable unit in the bank because they made their work visible. The team was given the responsibility to fix the problem, and they self-organized to make it happen. It's all about learning how to land the airplane. Now, from that banking experience, I was asked by a series of companies to come in and deal with tough problems. So I needed to figure out how to do this consistently and get other people to do it other than me. I couldn't be there all the time for everyone. And so I began to think about how would I do this.
So I will pause here because the video is very long and I don't want to spend the entire talk time to show you the video. If you're interested, you can browse online for Dr. Sutherland's talk. I always love to show this video in every one of my class because you have to know why Scrum was created and how it was created in order to use it correctly. So the first Scrum implementation is in a bank. And that could be the first Agile transformation as well. And that was the year 1983, 10 years before he published it to the world. 12 years. He met Ken Schreiber around 1995, and then they collectively decided to write a document so that many people could read it, and that was Scrum then, 1995. But this story was as 1983, the beginning of everything. So, one of the first things I want to highlight to you is the focus of why Dr. Sutherland created Scrum. He just came to the bank and he wanted to fix problem for the bank. He was seeing the banks having a lot of problems, so what he did was to take the worst money-losing business unit from the bank and in 6 months' time, change it to become the best profit-making business unit in the bank. So if you are in the banking industry, you just do it like what he did. And it will be a very natural thing to do. You don't have to look elsewhere. I'm constantly amazed that a lot of people in the financial industry is doing things that's really different from what Dr. Sutherland would do. So the real focus of Scrum is not to transform the IT team so that they program better. It's not to install a process in your company so that you work in an agile way. That's not why Dr. Sutherland created it. He created it for one reason only, to deliver business outcome for that scenario. Okay? So we have to always remember this. So when we ask Dr. Sutherland, hey, Dr. Sutherland, how's my Scrum implementation? He will always ask you back the following question. Did you have more revenue after you implemented Scrum? Did you have your costs down after you implemented Scrum? Did your customer like your product more? And sometimes he will ask, did your stock price go up? He will always use this external measuring stick to see whether our Scrum is doing well or not. He will not ask you, are you doing daily Scrum? Are you writing user story? Do you do sprint plan? He will not ask any of these questions because this is not how he would judge whether your Scrum is good or not. In order for Jeff Sutherland to say that you're doing good, you have to be able to understand, to answer the questions that he asks. So this is from the 15 States of Agile report. This Agile report is one of the only report that almost everybody in the Agile world will recognize to be the de facto of information. Now, this is the 15, and I think we are going to have the 16 very soon. So it seems like most of the people in the world that implemented Agile get this point right, because people are measuring the success by business value delivered and customer and user satisfaction. Most of the people are getting it right. So please take this first point that you should focus on business outcome and not the nitty-gritty things on your Scrum. That's not the point. Okay. Going from here, back to the 1983 story. When he entered the bank, he soon realized that there's two different problems that he needs to solve in order to fix the bank. He needs to fix the team so that the team can be hyper-productive. From a very sleepy teams that's not performing well, he needs to find a way to make it hyper-productive. And he needs to fix the organizations so that the organization can be quick and be able to make decisions quickly. That was his solution. So he has two sets of solutions. One, to fix a team level solution. One, to fix the organization, because fixing a BU is not fixing one team, it's fixing everything in the BU. So he needs an organizational solution. So he needs to be able to fix these two perspectives so that he can deliver business outcome and make the BU the most profitable BU in the bank. The team level solution, he wrote it down, and in 1995 he published it and called it Scrum. That's his team level solution, right? So from 1983, he keep on iterate, improve the model so that it become more functional. In 1993, he thought that he had the first real Scrum team, like the Scrum that we define today. Okay. The second set of solution, unfortunately, he didn't write down. He didn't write down because he thought that nobody will care how I fix the bank. As long as you guys have the team level solution, you should be able to apply it yourself and figure it out how to scale up to your organization. I didn't have to tell you. Unfortunately, he didn't write it down until around 2015, when someone called him and say, hey, our organization is not doing well after implement certain scale up solution. So, Dr. Sutherland, if you are the inventor, please give us your true solution on how you solve this. And then Dr. Sutherland suddenly realized that, hey, it's a two-part solution that I created, but I only documented the first part down, but I didn't document the second part down. So in 2015, only did he wrote down the second part of the solution. So if you want to learn Dr. Sutherland's true knowledge, you have to learn both sets of the things, because this is what he used to fix the bank as a complete solution. If you just know Scrum, you only know part one of the solution, and you're missing the larger piece here. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So, for the team level solution, even for the team level solution, a lot of people are not learning it right. There are a lot of things that people didn't learn right. In order to get to a hyper-productive team, you really have to do these four things well. First, you have to learn to apply the Agile mindset to operate your team. There are a lot of Scrum teams that behave like when they are doing their daily Scrum. Yesterday I do testing, today I do testing, no impact. The other guy will say, yesterday I program, today I program, no impact. There are teams like that. That's not... There's a team that's using Scrum, but it's not an Agile team at all. So you have to learn how to apply the Agile mindset into your team and operate it well. Now for that, I'm sure you have been through some of Agile training. I don't need to tell you more. Second, you need to create a good work structure. It is a must-have. If you don't have a good work structure, You are like driving a Ferrari with a flat tires. You are driving a really fast car, but your tires are all flat. You are dragging along because your team structure is suboptimal. The third thing that you have to do well is to manage your requirement right. There are a lot of teams that's using Scrum, and everybody that use Scrum have a product backlog, correct or not? Yeah. True? Right. The question is, what's in your backlog? So manage your requirement. I'll show you guys a little bit more about 2 and 3, which I think most people have the questions there. And the last thing to do is to run efficient production. What is a Scrum team? A Scrum team is a production team. If you are in software, your Scrum team produce software. If you are in marketing, your Scrum team manufacture marketing collateral. If you are in sales, your Scrum team delivers sales. That's just so simple. It's a production team, right? So you have to run efficient production. You have to use the lean concept to drive the Scrum process. And if you are learning sprint planning, daily Scrum and stuff like that, it's in number 4. That's not the first thing you should worry about. In fact, that's the last thing you should worry about after you are able to do the first 3. So when a lot of people are learning Scrum, but just like the day 1, they just learn how to write user story, and I was like, okay, well, it's very hard to get to a hyper-productive team then. Okay. So let's talk about the second one. Now, the second one is the good structure, and the third one is manage requirement. I'm going to talk a bit about this too. So, Dr. Sutherland's concept is this. He believed in order to change the work structure, he believed that in order to change the work culture of the bank, you can't send people to leadership trainings and hope that they get it. And then immediately after the training, they become a good agile leader. You can't. You can't shift into a high-performance culture just to send people to the training. You can't. Instead, we need to fix this by fixing this. So when you create a Scrum team, the first thing that you realize is that you use a different structure than the waterfall team right now. Correct, yeah? It's essential that you set up correctly, and there are theory and principle, and that Dr. Sutherland wrote them into Scrum patterns. Scrum patterns to guide you in this. Alright? So in order to do Scrum well, you have to change the work structure from if you are in a single team model, one Scrum team, you change the work structure of one Scrum team. If you are in the BU, if you have multiple team configuration, you change the work structure of the multiple team system in order for it to work well. And once you change the work structure, Jeff Sutherland theory is that it will trigger a response in the work system, the way we collaborate. If your team are structured differently, you work and collaborate differently. And in turns, when you collaborate differently, it propagates down and change the culture of the company. So if you are not able to change the culture of the company, think about this line of thoughts, right? This is what we'll do. So in order to do Scrum well, the second thing for you will be able to learn how to create good team structure. Otherwise, you'll be driving a Ferrari on flat tires. You're dragging along. The third thing is about managing your requirement. Now, when Dr. Sutherland tells us things, he's a very practical person. He don't tell us things just by, I guess. He will always run through with a lot of data, right? So when he has been invited to a lot of consulting engagement, a lot of people that run Scrum want him to go in there and give opinion. And throughout this time, he gathered a lot of runtime data. Which team configurations are most successful and which are not. And one of these things is that he realized that most of the time, the thing in your product backlog doesn't feel right. Only 25% of the staff are delivering story customer will actually use. And this is not about you, this is not about Thailand, this is about the entire world. that every place that Dr. Sutherland went to, everybody's having this problem, right? And 45% of staff delivering story that customer will never or rarely use. And worse, a third of the time that your staff are working on zero value story. Why is that? Because the entire requirement management process broke down. I am a product owner, I can write anything I like into the product backlog and push the team. Lo and behold, then people work on it. And it resulted in this. Remember, the goal of Scrum is to produce business outcome. And when your staff are working on things that nobody wants, are you going to produce business outcome? No. Right? Simple logic. So this is something that you must fix. And you have to learn the technique to fix it. Alright? Question, can we not do sprint planning? Can we not do daily Scrum? Well, don't mingle with the rules. So this picture, right, if I were to explain to you in some other way, it would be badminton. How many of you play badminton? Alright. In badminton, there are rules. I hit the shuttlecock and it drops onto your side. You can take it, I get 1 point. My racket cannot hit the net, otherwise I'll be a foul. These are the rules of badminton. Correct? Right? What would be the configuration then? So some of the best player, right, in China, Lin Dan, in Malaysia, Lee Chong Wei, they play badminton in a different way, but they're following the same rule. Some of these guys like to smash hard. Some of these guys like to run around and drop shots. Some of these guys want to prolong the battle so that you are tired, he's not. And some of these guys just play a different way. So based on your scenario, your unique perspective, you customize your configurations so that when you play badminton, you have your style of badminton. You don't mingle with the badminton rule, but instead, you keep tuning your skill, your configuration, so that you will win a competition. And that's the right way to use Scrum. Okay? So, the last piece of the puzzle, what has been missing, the part 2 of the solution that Dr. Sutherland didn't bother to write it down. He wrote it down in 2015. Well, he's not even sure he wrote it down in 2015 because when I asked him, he was murmuring and said, okay, 2015. All right? But the first Scrum skill training is not even available until 2017. I flew from Shanghai to London to take one of the class, the first Scrum skill class. 80-something years old, he's creating all the PPT that you've just seen. All the PPT in the deck, overnight sometime, just to try to give you the original knowledge and true knowledge to you so that you could use. I hope everybody will see this. We label Dr. Sutherland Scrum as the true Scrum knowledge from the origin. I hope one day you will learn about true Scrum, bring it back to your company, and both me and Jeff really wanted to see that you're using the real thing, and the real thing help your company to create business outcome like how he did it in the bank. Okay, up to this point, I am passing back to everyone to see if you have any question to ask me. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Yes.
Scrum and SAFe?
Okay, I'll try to be brief.
Yep.
I'll try not to say too much about SAFe. Some of the prominent difference is that Scrum skill is lightweight. You only need to read the Scrum skill guide and it's less than 20 pages. Although it takes a while for us to figure out like what it means, but it's like that. SAFe, you need to read 1,500 pages of documents. Right? To learn Scrum skill, you only need to know Scrum, because every team in the organization, including the bosses, there will be Scrum teams. There are no other roles like the RTE or any overhead that you need to incur in your system. All you need to do is use back the product owner, the Scrum Master, everything that you know about Scrum. So the team have product backlog, the Scrum team have their backlog, the bosses, the management have their backlogs. It's product backlog. You use back the same rules. So Scrum skill will be to use Scrum to seal Scrum. And Scrum skill is low cost, easy to learn, and you can implement it incrementally. You don't have to roll out everything at once. Thanks for your questions. Very good question. Any other question?
Besides the structure to create the culture, could you give the example of the good structure to build a good structure and the example for the bad structure?
Let me give you an example of bad structure, and then you probably can infer some of the not so bad structure, right? The absolute worst structure would be, I have a UI team, I have a front-end team, a back-end team, a testing team, a database team. When you receive a requirement, maybe in the form of user story, right? You need to hand off from the UI team, and then after they are done, you hand it off to the second team, the third team, the fourth team, and the fifth team. You generate so much handoff that your speed is slow, right? And because you're generating so much handoff, once something occurs, some problem, some bugs occur, nobody say, hey, it's not my bug. Right? So I had that in some of the consulting engagement that I had before, and the management just refused to change. I said, okay, I just tell you that this is not gonna work, but if you want to try, I'm gonna list down the expected outcome, and let's run it for like 2 months. It's just like what I said. So that will be one of them. Okay, let me give you another one. When I went to a company in Shanghai, and that's a very famous company, you use their product before. Like no matter who you are, you use their product before. So I went in there, the director told me that we have great Scrum. We are on our 46 sprints. So Ethan, you just come in here, give us some tips. That will be very easy. And I went in there, and then the first problem I saw is that the Scrum Master told me that we can't find a space for our daily Scrum. And I was like, why? Oh, because our Scrum team have 21 people in it. Horrendous configuration, right? So, and there are many more. So it's unbelievable to some extent that people are using Scrum in some of this way. Yeah, so team structure is a really important one. So you really want to have a small team and stable team. By small team, Scrum support 3 to 9 people. You can pick any number of people in your team, right? But the best number is 4.6. Why is 4.6? Because as Jeff traveled around the world, he looked at the best performing team, right? And then he told us, the Scrum skill trainer, that okay, from what I've gotten, like the 4.6 number is the best number for a Scrum. That it means 4 to 5 people. So as you are able to configure 3 to 9, your best configuration is around 4 to 5. So as we learned from Jeff, right, we are not just learning the rule that has been established a long time ago from him, but we are learning the runtime data, right? What's the best runtime data that we could have right now as a template for us to configure? So please don't configure 21 people into your team, right? Try 4 or 5. All right, thank you for your questions. Spectacular question. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am? Yes. You do this, I do this. All right.
You gave a lot of importance to the Scrum rules, that they should stay as is. But as you said, it was started in 1980, 2006 officially. But do you think the Scrum rules can be adapted more as we are going ahead?
Thank you. If we see the Scrum guide nowadays, right, it is not the same Scrum guide if you download it like many years ago. All right. So as Jeff and Ken is looking at the implementation situation, it is tuning the rules. He's tuning the engine for you as well, for us as well. So one of the examples is that Jeff removed the format recommendation for daily Scrum because he don't want those type. Yesterday I did testing, today I'm testing. So he's changing this. He's also changing the servant leader word to leader who serve. And that's a very big reason why he changed this. If you're interested, go to the CI Agile YouTube channels and go to watch Jeff and my interview with Jeff, and he'll talk explicitly about the servant leader change to leader who serve. So he's changing the language, he's changing the semantics of Scrum as well. So Scrum is changing, right? We just hope that Jeff will have more time to do this. Yeah, he's less involved nowadays because of his age, right? Thank you, ma'am. Right. So when we are doing Scrum as well, when we are starting, we follow everything to their strictest rule. And when we are having some experience, we will be tuning some of the things, right? We'll learn to tune the configuration to make it good, right? If you are an expert, like if you have been doing this for a long, long time and you really know what you're doing, then you can discuss with Jeff about some of the rules. This is just like diving, scuba diving, you know? If you don't know what you're doing, this is the first time you jump into the ocean, are you going to change anything your instructor give you? No, because you don't know what you're doing, right? If you have been diving for quite a bit of time, you optimize your technique so that from shallow water to open water, no problem. If you are an expert diver, like one of those divers that have the cave rescue in Thailand, right? You're expert, right? You change some of the rules together with some of the senior guys, right? So we do it like this, but be careful when you're doing this. A lot of people, a lot of leaders, they are talking about, hey, Scrum, the rules is not for us. There's so many meetings, we don't want to have that many meetings. Yeah, stuff like that. So before they use the first Scrum and have the first Scrum team, they are really changing the rules. And that is a no-no. That's like scuba diving, you don't know what you're doing, you're changing the gear that your instructor is giving you. All right. Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right. Perhaps the last question. One more question?
Any questions? So, may I have questions?
Yes, please.
Because we have the problem like most of the company in Thailand, they are using the waterfall, I can say, and they try to adapt the Scrum in the company. But the result is that the Scrum just in part of the development instead, and the rest of the process still be the waterfall. We call it is like mini waterfall. So can you have any suggestion that how can we pass through this situation to be more Scrum?
This is, unfortunately we see a lot of this, right? The reason is because the first batch of guys that was doing this was from IT, right? So naturally people infer that, hey, we should start with this. But let me ask you this question, and you can ask anyone about this question. If only IT in our business changed, nothing else changed, are we going to have a better business outcome? If you are from AIA, only your IT changed, the rest of the AIA, none of it changed, are you going to have better business outcome? Extremely hard, right? Because your sales, your marketing, your operation, your nothing changed. Perhaps to some company, IT is just a small portion. So the overemphasis on IT, right, is really not the way to go. So Dr. Sutherland used a word, Scrum is for everyone, not just IT. He especially don't want us to focus